What's up, y'all? Thank you for being here. Critical Strike Podcast back at you, episode 18. It's a small miracle we've done as many of these as we have, I think. But still proud and happy of us nonetheless, us being the usual suspects, just us three today. Fortunately. We're not, no unnecessary self-deprecation here. No. Henrique de Moore, Meg K, and Tyler Esguerra. Tyler woke up this morning and chose Drip.
It's literally just a sweater, man.
If you're watching, but let the record show. Beforehand, he goes, "Oh shoot, we're appearing on camera, aren't we? Give me a sec." Takes a full 5 minutes.
This was a planned fit. Don't let him fool you
I had
into
like
thinking
a
that, this is just what I rolled out to bed in.
Oh my god, man.
Meanwhile, I just got the AC fixed in my apartment, which is super hype. So I'm wearing a sweatshirt for the first time in a long time. And
I spent like 20 minutes trying to fix the lighting before we started, and it still didn't work. So I apologize profusely for the fact that I do currently look like I'm sitting in limbo because everything behind me is completely white.
Congratulations on spiritual ascension.
Yep.
We love that for you. All right, but we are talking here on episode 18 about the LCS, because we didn't really get into it kind of at all. I mean, Mad Lions was the rightful story, the talk of the town, whereas, North America kind of played out more or less how we thought it was going to. Was that Cloud9 was going to beat Team Liquid, and because those looked like the two best teams. But then in a final twist, Santorin gets, he doesn't get to play the finals, which was a big bummer, but Armeo did put in a pretty good performance. Before we get to there, though, the team that wasn't featured in the top three that at the beginning of the season we thought maybe was of course 100 Thieves. They have gone through a veritable saga in that mid lane, something that kind of carried over from last year. And then mid-split, right, they made that switch from Damonte to Ryoma. And then the big breaking news, splash in the cash, Papa Smithy put a $ instead of an S in his name, please, because he went out and got Schalke 04's very own Abbedagge, as he's known around those parts, Faker Dage. Should bring some more something to the mid lane, because as
he's bringing something,
we'll say consistent and meta as the two mid laners were for 100 Thieves, this feels like a step in the right direction.
This, the Abbedagge Someday combo is hype. I'm kind of mixed on the Abbedagge get overall, but I think the most positive part of it is that that's a hell of a top side to play through. If you have Someday and you have Abbedagge, both of those players can, in the right circumstances, pop off. I am just not 100% sure they will, but we shall see.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as long as their first thing, the most important thing I think for 100 Thieves is finding one mid laner to play with. I think that having that central guy that you're going to be playing with for the rest of the season, instead of having to flip back and forth between, or having to choose between Damonte and Ryoma, kind of put a halt to their efforts in terms of trying to find cohesion in the first place. But Abbedagge, I'm pretty split on my ideas. I think that he does bring a lot more consistency as a mid laner. He's a really good mid laner. But in terms of fit for this team, it's a little bit weird because we saw this past season that 100 Thieves aren't really, they can't really run closer through Someday. They weren't able to do that. Someday didn't get a lot of resources this year in terms of gold share, and he didn't look really the best, right? His best seasons were when he was he had the highest gold share amongst top laners in the LCS. I think that having an extra venue to focus on with Abbedagge is really good, but then again, you're adding another player because they've played only with very low resource mid laners. Both Damonte and Ryoma have this past season, I think, had the lowest gold share. Oops, sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear, but they both had the lowest gold share amongst mid laners in the LCS, whereas Abbedagge in the LEC was a top 4 in terms of gold share for mid laners. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of balance the resource sharing amongst that team, especially since Someday if they do want to help him succeed, he's going to need to get more resources, but I don't know if they will give that to him because they look pretty focused on giving FPI what he needs to succeed.
Which do you think would be more successful for them? If they kind of make Abbedagge fit their playstyle, or if they fit their playstyle to Abbedagge? Because I'm not entirely confident of how well Abbedagge can function as a low resource mid laner.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Is like, this is a big identity shift for 100 Thieves, because having a low resource mid laner is not a bad thing. If you want to play like that, like, you'll do well domestically, right? I mean, that's Nisqy, right? He made a killing on Cloud9 being just that. Now, look, we'll say, the meta will change to, whatever. And look, the mid lane meta, it's kind of Resident Sleeper right now. But I feel like this is such like a multi-layered thing, because it's like, okay, how much of that is on Closer as well? Because he did not have the best split, right? And we've seen what he can be, but he was not fantastic. And okay, you have like, a low resource mid laner. So I think it's like, it's can you execute, right? And so I think that part of it comes down to a degree, I would imagine, coaching, which brings us to our next point. They signed Reaper, which I forgot he didn't have a job.
It's crazy to think that he didn't have a team after he got dropped by C9. That was
for a hot sec, for a split.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was in Nashville this past weekend visiting my sister, and I'm just sitting in the hotel because I'm just like, okay, I gotta kill 5 minutes. I'm staring at the ceiling. Let's go on Twitter, right? And I just let out an audible like, oh my god! Like, I was so surprised. Yep. But I mean, this should, again, in theory, help, because it seems like what 100 Thieves need they're gonna have to shift a playstyle somehow. And again, this is still 3 out of the 5 guys of this Golden Guardians roster that, that's the boys, right? It's like a less sexy version of Mad Lions in terms of like their cohesion, young players, and all this, right?
A less sexy version. That's one way to put it, yeah.
No, FBI is a very good looking man. That's not what I meant. But
I mean, yeah, okay.
But look, confidence is attractive, and Carzzy, hello? DMs are open. That's all I'm saying. Anyway.
Damn, this is on Maine, bro. You're posting on Maine. Who are you, Meg?
And
Someone clip this. We need this for blackmail for future references.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, look, in theory, this feels like I feel like a lot of it's going to come down to Reaper, and there's so much of that is so hard to see and observe.
Yeah, he's coming into it like this team right now. I think that they did need I think they needed a coaching change for sure, because we saw how, like, what happened when they weren't ahead because of existing cohesion. I think that in the beginning of the split, they looked really, really good because they already had 4 players who played with each other, whereas a majority of the major teams had made changes to their roster in a way that they still needed to get things going, whereas 100 Thieves kind of just plug and played 4 players that already know how to play with each other, so of course they're going to look good. But as soon as like the rest of the team started to build that kind of synergy and catch up with them in terms of being able to play together and knowing how to play with each other, then the individual and like the mistakes in terms of, let's say, shot calling and decision making started to shine, because they couldn't just rely on that existing cohesion.
And I think that does like the advantage that you innately had that no other teams had. You can't just keep relying on that forever. Exactly.
And so I think that 100 Thieves getting Reaper is really, because he's shining track record, obviously, right? And so I think that he has shown that he can work with multiple types of rosters. But it'll be interesting to see how he balances it, because I do think that there's a lot of resource dependent players on that team. And like you said, Meg, like Abbedagge, I don't know how he'll be able to like function on a more like less dependent or less resource heavy like role, unless of course they push towards like who would you rather be more like, who would you rather put your cards onto, FBI, Abbedagge, or Ssumday?
I mean, it's riskier to have a top lane carry, right? Like, it's... Right. I mean, ideally what would happen for this team is, like, in an absolute perfect scenario, you'd get, like, the Mad Lions, or kind of it's sort of true for RNG as well, where you have carry threats in all 3 lanes, and you kind of... The decision of the carry is made on a game-by-game basis, rather than it being, we have a low-resource mid laner, low-resource top laner, and then our AD carry gets everything. You can kind of make that decision in each individual draft. But that's really challenging to do, because it means that your players have to be comfortable with running on low or high resources, and that changing, like, on a dime. And I don't know if especially because Reaper is just coming in, and it's gonna take, like, as with any working relationship, it takes time to form, like, a good working relationship, and, like, it's gonna take time for him to get these players absolute trust. I don't know if they'll, like, be able to have that triple lane flexibility straight away.
I hope that it is, because I think you sometimes hear this in scrims as well, or like I've heard this. I forget whether it's LCS or LEC or whatever, but like something I remember hearing from like players and coaches is that like often it comes down to champ pool a little bit as well, right? And it's like, okay, are we just going to hammer home what's meta to play safe? And I hope that again, if you want to shift your style, right? Like it's like, oh, he's like a low resource mid laner. Okay, well, why do you say that? Okay, it's because of the champions he plays. Right? Like certain champs, you can't be like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a low resource Kai'Sa. No, like that's not how that works.
That's not, yeah.
Yeah. And so, maybe Reaper helps open up the draft for them, right? Maybe that is beat into them of like, look, we can't just survive playing one way, because that's kind of what killed them last time, is that once people figured out, oh, they just play through FBI, let's take, let's ruin some day's life up there. Rama's going to have 160 CS instead of 220 minutes. Great. Not a threat. We just look out for the shockwave and go from there. So I'm hoping that, again, just the champ pools open up, because I think they're going to have to. I don't think you can stick Abbedagge on a low like, I don't know, if I'm him, like, unless I'm literally just going to NA to collect a paycheck and literally only that, I'm not going to be happy just being stuck on, Galio duty, for lack of a better term.
That sucks. That's not what he's good at. That's not what he's known for. That's, if you want to get a safe, reliable Galio mid-style playing player, why would you get Abbedagge? Like, they clearly want him for some of his firepower, so...
I'm just saying.
Leading on perfectly.
I mean, that was the rumor, right? It was rumored that they were going for Nisqy, which I think would have been a really good fit, because he's a low resource mid laner. Clearly, like, that's his play style. He loves playing supportively towards his lanes. He plays TF really, really well. Just roams and affects the side lanes with the jungler.
I mean, that would have been a very old Fnatic style team. Like, you would have had kind of safe, reliable mid laner. You would have had, like, occasionally pop off, occasionally is content to just sit there to do tank duty. This is like Nemesis era Fnatic. You would have had, like, safe mid laner, likes to just kind of will sit top and survive, or will for some reason play like Riven or Aatrox and 1v9 the game, and then you have your primary reckless FBI carry onto whom the majority of your gold goes in the bot lane, and like Fnatic proved that could work really well, and that could have worked really well for 100 Thieves, but I guess that just wasn't, like, obviously we have no idea what the contract negotiations were, but that's just not what they ended up with.
If Nisqy was even an option.
Yeah,
too,
it was purely a rumor.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how the meta affects it too, because I think like with you talk about like old Fnatic with Selfmade, he was a guy that really thrived on the carry jungle meta, and and other guys still are like, oh no, like Volibear is actually still really good. Olaf can still be played and things like that. Those aren't the meta. Yeah, exactly. And so I mean, I wonder how much that affected things. But anyway, we're getting off track here. TSM. As long as we are done talking about 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Let's talk about TSM, not in the context of the series itself, because that just wasn't good. We kind of beat that point to death a little bit. It was not great play. TL outclassed them kind of on every front. And I was glad that TL actually put up a good fight against, Cloud9, because then it was like, I think TSM looks as bad, right? Because if that fiesta of a series happens and TL look like gods because of it, and then they just get their teeth kicked in by Cloud9.
Oh no.
That'd be a very, very sad NA boy. But getting into TSM, I think the conversation is more big picture. It's where do we go from here if we are TSM? And right now, we are Tyler. Tyler, our TSM. Tell us where we go from here.
Come on, Coach Tyler. What do we do?
There's too much. They've invested way too much into this roster that I think you have to like try and run it back. I think that right now, the biggest issues for me is that when they hit, there was a weird moment where in the middle of the season they looked really, really good, and they found a really good identity as a team. Mm-hmm. But then into the playoffs, they kind of lost that. Because before they used to be pretty okay-ish in the early game, but then when the mid to late game hit, that's when they started to excel. Mm-hmm. But it felt like in the playoffs that kind of fell to the wayside, and so their early game was actually worse in the playoffs than it was in the regular season, and then their mid to late game was also worse in the playoffs than in the regular season, and it felt like there was some kind of, I don't know if it's communication issues or just straight cohesion things where they weren't on the same page at all. Yeah, it felt really kind of old TSM problems where they just weren't sure when they wanted to go in, and people were kind of just diving in and or getting caught out. It looked very, very old TSM, and it kind of like it felt almost like nostalgic watching how they were throwing leads. They were just throwing leads. They were throwing away their advantages, and it just felt really bad to watch. Not even as a TSM fan, but as an NA fan, because after that series, we had to look at that and go, TSM's our third place team. Like, really? Like, I remember the last game against Team Liquid and I remember this because I was watching with one of our coworkers, Mike, and I'm like, they TL threw the draft. Because I remember before the finals, that week that we had the show, I talked about how the only way that they could lose is if they shoot themselves in the foot with draft. And in that game, they gave Core JJ, I can't remember who it was, but it was not a playmaker. They gave him Tom Kench. And then they put Alfari on Sion. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, this is the only way that you lose, and you did this. And TSM managed to, like, flub it completely, and it was the worst game of the series. Like, they almost had a perfect game, right? I think they only lost a tower or something.
Yeah, it was 19-0. Alfari went 5-0-7 on Sion. Armeo 1-0-8 on Hecarim. Jensen 7-0-9 on Victor. Tactical 6-1-6. TSM had no kills. Do the math on that one. The one time Tactical died, it wasn't even by TSM's hands. Core JJ 0-0-10.
Yeah.
My guy started a Doran's ring.
It's like they just look like when they play, every time they get close to making a decision, they're just like, no, just give it 2 more minutes. Just give it 2 more minutes, let PoE farm like 2 more waves, and then we'll do it. I watched them stall a Baron for 6 minutes in that series. And it's like, so sure, like, ragging on TSM, it's tired. Like, we saw all of the community feedback after the series. Like, clearly, something's not working. We don't need to beat the dead horse over all of the things that they did wrong. But ultimately, like, they look very lost. They look like they don't have that voice that is, I saw that eyebrow raise, I hate you.
Eyebrow raise.
They
look very...
Well, now I forgot what I was going to say, so thank you.
Sorry.
They look very lost.
They look very lost. They need someone in game who can just be like, right, no, stop farming your side lanes. We're going to make this decision. We might not have the perfect... Honestly, like, going for objectives with less than perfect vision almost feels like it would be better than what we have right now, which is just not going for any objectives ever at all and just, like, doing the little salsa around the Baron pit.
They constantly, like PoE constantly came to fights late. Or like, it was odd. And I don't know. There's a lot of growth that needs to be done with this team, clearly. Maybe, you know, Bjergsen, this is his first time coaching. I don't think that it's a problem with his drafting, though, and the way he's the coaching, because he's clearly gotten better since he started. I just think that this roster, it feels like they're playing, and the way that they communicate to each other is like I communicate with my friends in solo queue, where instead of saying we're gonna do this, instead of saying like a statement, they say a question, where it's like, are we gonna go for this? It looks like exactly right. So yeah, no, TSM. I don't think they can really afford to go with anything else. I think they have to stick with this roster and try to make it work somehow. So they have. It would be
criminal if they tried to make like an off-season roster move.
Yeah, no,
you put so much effort into getting this roster the way that it is now. Make it work. Put the time in, make it work.
Yeah, and there was tremendous growth even over the course of the split, and there was a spot there in the middle of the split where it was like when TSM went on that 8-game win streak, and I was like, holy crap, like they look good. Like they could actually challenge Cloud9 right now on form. That was when Cloud9 like kind of started to dip a little bit. It was like on form right now. You can make an argument that for one game, a snapshot of time, TSM were the best team in NA. But no, I agree. Like from Bjergsen it being his first split as coach, I think he's got a lot to do with kind of that. Okay, look, if you guys aren't going to make these calls, like I've got to somehow as the coach drill it into you that you guys need to start playing like this, right? And I think some of that comes with time, some of that comes with Bjergsen, some of that comes with, you can't blow up this roster. I think it would be criminal.
That doesn't hapen. There's no universe where that happens.
No.
They just get rid of Sword Arts. Like, sorry,
6
no more contract
milli
for you.
flushed.
Well,
That would be the single
literally
darkest
that cannot
timeline.
happen.
Oh, that would actually be the darkest timeline. I just feel so bad for him. Then he would go to wherever, like, and just stomp, right? Okay. Anyway, before we take a break, there was, excuse me, I'm clearing my throat a bunch. I apologize. There was, this kind of conversation about, I had a gamer moment in the Slack a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
I got a little upset about, as Meg would call them, the armchair analysts, right? The Twitter analysts, and just kind of how they drive the perception around, North America. And it's funny because even Tyler Erzberger, right, Fion of Upcomer, he, by the way, the 0-1 against Dot Esports. Upcomer.
There we go. There it is.
Set the record straight right there after our social media manager, Michael Vickroy, top gapped him for 2 out of the 3 games. Anyway, sorry. A lot of gamer moments for Hank. He kind of tweeted out something similar. So, scroll on his timeline. You could probably find it. Is that, I was upset that it didn't seem like, what's called a fiesta in one region, NA is called, oh wow, fun, exciting, fighting gameplay all the time.
Look at the outplays.
The outplays, right? In the LPL or wherever, right? And how in the LCK, right? I mean, this is kind of, semi-related, but it's just like how that playoffs, and this is not to take away from this, I think it was a Zale said on the dive, and I could wholeheartedly agree with him. He said, like, not to take away from how dominant Damwon was, but that was the most boring playoffs of all time.
Yep.
Because Damwon just steamrolled literally everybody, and with how conservatively the LCK plays, again, it's just
sleeper.
It's just like, let's call it what it is, right? Like, if you're really into the mins and the maxes, the taking objectives with perfect vision and perfect item spikes and perfect lane management states, if you like that side of the game, watch the LCK. You will never be bored. You will never have a sad day in your life, right? But again, it's just calling it what it is, and being consistent about not letting the biases of the regions color what you're actually seeing on your screen. Now, do I take responsibility for letting Twitter and people whose opinions I shouldn't let get to me like I did 100%. There's a lesson to be learned there for Hank, and I did. Or for now, I don't know. We'll see by the time MSI rolls around. But I think I don't know. Meg, I know you had kind of some thoughts on this, so I'll give you the floor.
Or it's just like I think a lot of the time it's a lot easier to say that one team did something badly than the other team did something well, and like especially from an analysis perspective, that tends to be like the preferred, because it's funny to meme on teams, right? Like someone does something stupid, like you clip it, you get like a great Twitter clip, and it's funny. Like I'm not taking away from the community's ability to meme or anything like that, but I also think it's become a lot more popular to shit on one team for doing something wrong rather than shitting on another, like not shitting on another team, than like building up the team that they're playing against for doing something right. And the TSMTL series is not a great example because like it was just kind of bad gameplay throughout. But I think it is an important thing to remember that if one team throws, ultimately the other team does have to catch. And like there are always... It is rare that a series will be played in which both teams play like absolute dog water for every single game, like the whole time. There are good things that can be taken out, and it is also important to look at those good things because like negativity is really boring. If it just becomes a conversation of like, oh, this region's so bad, everyone sucks, like even their best team is terrible, that's not true. It's clearly not true. And like MSI will be probably a good chance to prove that like people are saying NA is doesn't even deserve to be a major region. Like MSI will probably prove that that's not the case. Someone's going to clip that if C9 lose to a wildcard team, and I'm going to look like an idiot.
Oh God,
but
see, now the energy's out in the universe. This is what I'm talking about. We can't be saying
this
these
podcast,
things because suddenly
I do
C9's
not
going to
claim
lose
this
to
negative
Infinity
energy.
Esports or something. Here it comes.
I don't know. Ultimately, just negativity sounds smart, but a lot of the time it's not. A lot of the time it's just being mean for the sake of it, and it's unnecessary, and it makes regions seem a lot worse than they are because that's the community perspective around them. That is all. That is my piece.
Because you get ninnies like me who are like, oh no, Twitter thinks this region or this play was bad or this region's bad. Again, look, maybe they might be right, they might be wrong, but it's just like you get people like me who, occasionally will not think for themselves, and like I'm just blindly driving the narrative that you could just trick yourself. You say something enough time, you manifest it, right?
Yep.
And like again, that's just like this overwhelming narrative. That's like, where did this actually come from, right? So it's just like, let's think for ourselves. I'm looking at myself in the Discord call right now. Think for yourself. If you don't know something, admit you don't know it. Ask questions, right? And surround yourself with people who will let you ask questions, because those are good friends.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's got to be a balance. If you're gonna be like criticizing a team, make sure that's for the right reasons. If they did make a mistake, it's fine. But if you're just like not even looking at like the facts or like the gameplay or whatever, and you're just coming in assuming that like this team's because they're from a specific region or whatever.
And if you're just out to get them, if you're waiting for
in
them
a way,
to score.
yeah, exactly, right? Because in EU there's a ton of throws, right? And
Oh boy, there are so many.
like there's so
throws.
many throws, right? And luckily we're surrounded by people that understand that those are throws, but there's a large amount of people that would like call out, like if we saw that in NA, it would be a completely different story for a majority of people, right? Instead of it being an outplay, obviously it would be like, oh my god, this region sucks. Oh my god, how did you even throw that, et cetera, et cetera. If you see that in EU, some people might not see it because of the name NA EU. They'll see it differently, right? Granted, right? You're talking about where did this come from in terms of the NA kind of reputation.
Yeah, like and every like stereotype has a grain of truth in it.
Exactly. And so let's be real, right? NA hasn't really hasn't looked great on multiple facets, right?
The 1 through
play.
10 from NA would lose to the 1 through 17 potential. Well, maybe not the 17. The bottom of the LPL is a little.
Yeah, no, but the LPL is kind of
the top 10 across the 4 major regions. NA comes in 4th. Like that's just a fact, and that's okay. But again, let's be nuanced here.
Yeah, like I think that like whenever people say C9 would get crushed by like whatever team or whatever, like a 5th or 6th place team from Europe would end in like 1st. It's like, well, okay, like
I don't know about
our
that.
top teams are pretty good. Like NA's not bad. It's just that I do know that like the reputation has been brought upon by the performances of the regions and how the region has kind of evolved, right? Like EU, for example, has gotten this shining reputation for good reason, right? The way that they've built their scene and the players that they have and how they coach.
The 3rd and
how they
4th place
play.
teams are convincingly taking down the established giants.
Exactly. And you have like teams going like top 4 worlds consistently, right? G2, even though that's like a super team. But even then, like Mad Lions, Rogue, like G2, Fnatic, even like the 5th and 6th place teams like SK and Schalke look really good. And so that kind of like perception on EU is warranted. And I do think to a degree, NA, it's kind of warranted as well because of the way that we've kind of just evolved as a region. Kind of like, like for example, the news that those reports saying that they're going to vote away like mandatory academy teams in EU.
Yeah, just
Right.
broke by our colleague Pablo.
by our
Suarez.
boy Pablo. Yeah, I looked at that and I'm like, that's not a problem for EU because the ERL is successful even without them.
So
they
deep.
don't need the help of the academy scene because they're so successful already by themselves. And this is just one this is just one aspect of it. In NA, if you give that rule to the NA teams and go, you don't need to have academy teams anymore. It's over.
No, because
Literally, it's over.
Because here we still have to build those structures. In Europe, those were already in
Exactly.
place. So it's like
Like
okay,
they've built it exactly, but like that's one aspect, and then there's multiple aspects that have given NA this kind of like retirement home type of feel to everyone. Everyone thinks that, oh, you're coming to NA, you're retiring. But people want to win. People still want to win.
People are still competitors.
And so, you know.
Also,
NA
at the
just
end of
needs
the day,
to-
players read Twitter. Like, if you want your team to win, why on earth are you going on Twitter and being like, oh my god, this team sucks, this team's so bad, like, I can't believe that I support this team, like, fire X player, kick X player off the roster, get him out now. Players read Twitter. And, like, as much as anyone says that, like, oh, I don't let social media get to my head, you do. Like, anything that
always
you
in the
read
back
is going
of
to
your
affect you in some way. If you want your team to win, telling the team's management to kick a player because they, like, missed an ult, come on. Like, you're better than this. We're
You're
better
also
than
like
this as esports
20 years
fans.
old. Like,
Word. Hella young.
the
Hella
mental
young.
I had when I was 20 years old, I'm 24. It's only marginally better. Like,
Yo, I was getting
20, and if someone says something
during
mean
that
about
show
me, I
match. I was getting
cry.
flamed, and I could feel the tears welling up already. Like,
Yup.
what are you talking about? Like, in Captain Flowers' chest, like I overextended, and I saw the Tyler Please afterwards in the VODs. I'm like, all right.
I was trying really hard. You don't have to be
Yeah,
like
I
that.
tried my best.
the auto range was longer.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this section, and we're gonna take it to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk finals, we'll talk MSI, and that'll wrap it up for episode 18. We're back, episode 18, part 2 of the Critical Strike podcast. Meg K, Enrique Demore. Sorry, that was me in a past life.
Henry.
It was Henry. Yeah.
That's his
That-
alter ego.
See, that's a weird name for you guys, but that's what I went by like my entire life because I had a second grade teacher that couldn't pronounce Henrique for the life of her. God bless Miss Ferris, wonderful woman, but just couldn't say Enrique. So I went by Henry from second grade until
Damn.
literally 3 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You
Middle
just
of
unlocked
college,
some
bad.
backstory, Critical Strike viewers.
Wow.
Yeah,
some
well,
lore.
Yeah, you get my the lore, the origin story. But by the way, middle of college, really bad time for a rebrand.
Mm.
Yeah, I kind of see
Everyone
that.
knows. Yeah, it didn't stick.
True.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the MSS finals. That was weird, came out of my mouth. MSS, I didn't like that. The LCS finals, the LCS spring split finals. It's like when they changed Ninja Tabby to plated steel caps. It's Ninja
Yeah.
Tabby.
Still
Why
Ninja
did
Tabby.
that happen?
Always in our hearts.
But yeah, I mean, well, the big storyline was that Team Liquid were not going to be at full strength. And Armeo came in. He did fine. He was good. He was not the reason they lost. You got to give credit to Cloud9 coming back from down 2-1. Perks was in that 2-1 down game 4 comfort zone.
Oof.
They were if you listen to the dive at all, go back and listen to the most recent episode. They read out some statistics of Perks in game 4s of best of 5s. The numbers are
Nasty.
Herculean. They are unbelievable. But look, the fact of the matter is Cloud9 also beat TL in the upper bracket when they were at full strength. So they are your deserved champions, and I don't think anyone really disagree with that. Credit to TL. They played a very good series. They, under the circumstances especially, they took that to 5 games, but Cloud9, deserving champions. Tyler, what did you see in this one?
It was tragic that they had to play with a sub for their jungler. Even still, like you said, the fact that they brought it to 5 games with a sub jungler, I'm not like Armeo is good, but he's no Santorin, and so to be able to perform at that level with an academy level jungler is still really, really impressive, and I'm just super excited to see what TL is able to do during the two-month break. For Cloud9, there's still some kinks that need to be ironed out in the armor. I think that they're not perfect right now. There's still a lot of things that they need to get instilled, but I think that Perks as a player, I think it goes to show how much how good he is as a player in terms of mechanics and decision making. But I think that the intangibles that he has brought to this team might have been the biggest thing that he brought, is that level of communication and cohesion that he can bring, especially in a really, really high stress environment for players, for a player like Fudge, for example, who's coming in and this is his first time on stage, first time fighting for a championship like in the LCS. It's a perfect time for him to learn and kind of have that presence behind him to help him. So I think this was a really, really well played series. I think that both teams stood a chance. I did have C9 taking it because I thought that they had a lot more going for them in terms of, even before the whole thing with Santorin, I thought that they just had enough firepower in the case of a series in which they have a lot of players who can play different styles of champions, right? Yeah. Fudge has shown huge growth. And I'm going to hammer this in to everybody who's listening here. Fudge was getting good. Fudge was getting so much like flack at the beginning of the season. One, because he was talking shit, but two, he got rolled in the lock-ins. Expected. You're facing off against Alfari and Someday.
Yeah, you're half your sample size in the lock-in is going against two of the best top laners in the LCS.
Exactly. But
calm down. His
growth as a player, like when Sven was like, I had no doubt in my mind that he'd become the best top laner in NA. But it's like, hey, we all had doubts. I'm really happy that he was able to alleviate all of those and actually become a really good top laner. He works really well with Blabber. He's able to hold his own against these players and even like counteract against even like he went like he would like outplay a 2v1 sometimes against in lane, and it's just like him.
Like wasn't it First Blood? Like all 5 games was top lane.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah,
Alfari got the treatment.
Yeah,
yeah,
got the sauce.
Yeah,
he got the fudge.
yeah. But no, Fudge is really really good, and Perks is Perks. That effect, the Perks effect is in effect for Cloud9. Yeah. We'll see how it stands.
And Perks played 5 different champions too in all 5 of those games, busting out the Zoe in game 4, Silas in game 5. No, I mean they played really really well, and I think Perks does bring a lot to that team, on and off the Rift. And I do think the off the Rift stuff is probably making more of a difference, especially when you talk about look, yes, he has a former teammate in Sven and and Mithy and Reignover, like all that, but like he probably had as big of an effect on Fudge as anybody. That seems like a really good team environment to grow in.
For sure. Yeah.
Meg, you're muted.
Meg, you're muted, by the way.
I'm back.
There she is.
You roll a dice and you get this team to like grow on and this team to develop, and like this has been a really good example of how important a good team environment is for the development of an individual player, because there's no way that he would have gotten this good over the course of one split if it hadn't been for like the team that's around him. Like, you have Perks. If there's someone that you want to be able to help you to teach you like the more macro-based kind of decision-making style, like where you should be when type parts of the game, he's pretty much like the perfect candidate for that.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's there were questions about, Cloud9 before Perks was like, okay, at the end of summer split, as they were starting to fall off, you would have thought, okay, look, even if they kept all 5 of these guys together, that's what everyone thought was going to happen. And Cloud9, I still do ding them a little bit for this. Like, they definitely made it seem like, oh yeah, everybody's going to be back for 2021
running
spring.
Back, yeah.
And then they just aggressively were not. Actually, 40% of them were not. And then, but look, it's all water under the bridge now. No one really cares. Licorice actually seems pretty happy in like, his, role there on the FlyQuest development squad. Hope Niski's doing okay. Really don't know how he's doing, like, personally, mentally, etc. But there's an interesting question that we threw in our rundown here. Can it even be argued anymore that Perks isn't the greatest Western League of Legends player of all time? Right, one of only 2 players to win a split on both Western continents. Right?
You cannot argue it anymore.
It's getting pretty
even
tough.
Before this.
Yeah.
Even before this, we had an argument. Who was it? It was it Mike again who said, "Oh, I would give that I would consider reckless." And I said,
Mike throws out a lot of banger hypotheticals. He's very just like we're just sitting there, talking, writing a script or watching LCS or whatever. He's like, all right, look, at their peak, like 2014 SS Samsung Galaxy, 2015 Rocks Tigers, or like 2019 FPX, like who you got? I'm like,
pretty good,
like nosebleed.
Yeah, nosebleed, yeah. But this one, kind of off. You know what I'm saying?
I would love to be able to play devil's advocate here. I'd love to be able to be like, oh, but Reckless is really good, right, guys? Like, no, I just think it kind of just has to go to Perks at this point. Like, he's just, doubted Perks at various points in his career back when I was an absolute rabid slavering fanatic fan. But like he's just so good. And like
multiple championships.
It's the fact that he's not just like the insanely talented 1v9 Yasuo Zed mechanical outplay god, clip it, put it on your YouTube channel player. Like he's really smart, and I think what we've seen of G2 kind of looking a little bit directionless, maybe, or lacking direction without him this split definitely proves that he brings more to a team than just being like a 1v9 god.
Yes. He like, let's be real, right? Like, Yanko saying, no one has stepped up to be the lead, so I'm going to do it. Like, we didn't hear any of those guys kind of say this type of stuff until he left. And not only that, multiple European championships, one of only 2 players to win in NA and EU. He won MSI, the only Western team, and the only returning player to defend the throne at MSI. He's been a top 4 worlds thing, like he's been a top 4 worlds contender 3 times, I believe, right? He's been to the top 4 in worlds 3 times. One was the finals.
Was he in the 18 semifinals? Or did they get bounced in quarters? I actually don't know. I'll look that up.
I think it might have been quarters.
Either or, his resume speaks for itself. Not to mention the fact that he played 2 roles and dominated and was super good in both.
My guy got to world finals on an off role. Like
exactly. Yeah. Right? Imagine saying to yourself,
and they did get to semis. They got 3-0'd by IG, but they did get to semis.
There it is. Right? And so that was the year that with Fnatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so Perks, he has shown incredible flexibility. He literally played in 2 roles. Was amazing at both. He brings intangibles off and on the Rift. Well, who else is there to say?
Like no one really comes close. There will be like Sven is very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Like, Sven has achieved a lot in his career, and I think it is important to recognize this, because I feel like Sven does sometimes go under the radar a little bit, especially if you are the DPS on, like, the DPS is this Overwatch. If you are, like, that kind of player on a team that has Perks in it, you're gonna go underrated because, like, you're just sitting there pewing at the back of a team fight while Perks is, like, messing everyone up.
And it's like the reason you don't notice him is because he's so gosh darn consistent. So, like, his floor is so dang high.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if he was worse, he might get talked about more. But, like you said, he just that bot lane is Mr. Consistent. They are so clean.
But he's not Perks. And he, like... No one is right now, and I hope that, like, we're seeing people who are kind of coming close to Perks' performance, like, give Caps a couple more years, like, what will he, like, give him a little bit more time to mature into a more kind of leadership-oriented, reliable team, like, fortifying role, and maybe we will see Caps kind of come to fill the same position that Perks has been filling, but right now, like, no one comes close.
I was gonna ask that. Who do you guys think is the next one up? Behind Perks, who do you see filling that role of, like, best in the West?
If it's not Reckless yet, and the book might be kind of closed on, is he the greatest? Which it seems like that's kind of where we're at. I think it would be Caps, just because I think, to kind of Meg's point, the only thing he doesn't have on his resume is the, like, you know, like, you saw how important Perks was as one man by the team that he joined. Looks leagues better. He was built around, when Carlos was starting Gamers 2, as they were known back then, he was like, no, Perks is my dude.
This is the guy.
I'm going to build an empire around him.
And
right? He did. And they reigned with an iron fist for so long. And yeah, and then you see, like, when he leaves, right? It's like, okay, I think it's Caps, right? But then it's like, okay, but Caps hasn't stepped up yet, right? And I think, like,
Larssen
but again,
keeps getting kind of close. Like, Larssen would be the only other name that I feel like I would maybe throw out there, but it's just these, like, the little rogue blips that we keep seeing. I feel like he's not there yet. But in terms of, like, the consistency and the, like, ability to just be this reliable force of, like, I'ma get the team over the finish line one way or another, that is very Larssen, but he just doesn't have the results to back it up yet. And again, maybe if we give him more time, we'll be able to see more out of him. But, like, right now he's nowhere close.
Yeah, nobody else is close to this guy.
Yeah, no, he's just had too long a career that's been too consistent. But Cloud9, look, like we said, Perk's going to be the only guy that's going back to defend his title. How do we think Cloud9 will fare? Look, I think we think they'll get out of groups, right? I suppose they could shock us all and not, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they get out, right? They're not going to come in first. No one's going to beat Damwon, maybe ever. I don't know. They might not lose a game again.
Oh no!
But I think it is pretty cool that they get to go back having missed their chance. You know, I'm a big Team Liquid fan. I love Core JJ more than I love most things, but this is the one split where I'm like, just let them go, because it felt so bad that they missed out last year, and it'd be cool to see Perks back there as well. Do we think that this iteration has a better shot than last year's? I'm gonna say. I'll start off here. I think yes, on paper, but you want to talk about meta lining up with a roster. That was Cloud9 spring to a T, because they figured out before everyone else did, and this is the same thing. This is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. JDG, right? They were going to be the 2020 spring representatives from. Right, they were, right? Yeah, they beat TS in the final.
It was JDG, T1, and G2.
Yeah, they, like Cloud9, figured out, wait a minute, carry junglers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why also when teams keyed into that, I'm oversimplifying here, but I think they were two teams that played through their jungler and realized that coming into MSI, and that's why they stomped as hard as they did. And then once people figured out, oh, wait, if you take Blabber off Olaf, he's low-key a little useless. You know, that's why Cloud9 fell off a cliff. JDG kind of fell off a cliff a little bit. Right, because TES, they just got by on the strength of their individual players, because Karsa was never a carry jungler. He's a facilitator, but everyone else was so flippin' good that it didn't matter. But I think on paper, if you were to drop meta irregardless, I think this year's Cloud9 looks better. But I think last year's Cloud9 had a really, really incredible shot to do something really, really special.
Yeah, I completely agree on the meta fact. I think that obviously on paper the rosters look really, it's not kind of close, right? But I think in terms of how they fit and how they like schemed their play style, and to a degree, like it's interesting to me because, well, how even do you think the competition is in terms of 2020 and 2021? So last year it was JDG, T1, and G2. This year it's Mad Lions, Damwon Gaming, and RNG in the forms that they are at right now. Which do you think is strong? Which do you think is the stronger group?
It's kind of hard because I realistically do think Damwon are just gonna kind of make mincemeat out of everyone. So I think. Don't get me wrong, I think RNG are very good. I think people are kind of underrating RNG because they sort of limped into their MSI spot a little bit. Like, they got knocked into the losers bracket by FPX, and then they obviously ended up beating FPX in the finals. And FPX were the team that everyone was expecting to see at MSI. I think that's kind of fair to say because we wanted, the Nuguri Damwon rematch. But RNG is who we have. RNG are very good. RNG are very good at playing through multiple roles, but, oh man, Damwon is so scary. I've been watching back some of their games for I've started my MSI prep and I've been watching back some of the games. My god, they're so terrifying. And I think Damwon purely just being there means that this year's competitors, this is a harder year. For anyone trying to win MSI, this wall that you have to get through, it's just more difficult this year.
I wholeheartedly agree with Meg.
Okay. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be really difficult for Cloud9 this year, especially because they do have Damwon in their group.
Oh no,
that's fine. Just take care of business with the minor regions.
That's all my hoping.
You get out of there.
Just take the L's.
Get out of there with
just take the L's.
I don't want to get another repeat of Team Liquid losing to
Machi baby.
Machi's Esports, and that ended up costing them their spot in the like that is so heartbreaking, and you cannot afford to you
take the minor regions seriously. They're
ever.
They're inconsistent occasionally, sure, but they can pull out some absolute banger games when it's necessary. And it's the absolute kryptonite of major regions to not take the minor regions seriously because they will mess you up. If you don't pay attention to them, they will mess you up.
No, they'll come. Then they come out there with nothing to lose. They go, "Oh, everyone expecting us to get memed on anyway. Watch this, right?" Was it 20? I think either 15 or 16 when I think it was like the first game of Worlds period. INTZ out of CB Lowell, who lost all 5 of their other games in the group stage, came out and just donkeyed Edward Gaming. Back when they were like really sick, one of the Clear Love teams. They shocked everyone, right? You play with nothing to lose.
And this has been Hank's CB Lol Corner. Thanks for coming.
True. No, we'll get to the CB Lol Corner next week when we do a little bit of a deeper dive in MSI. I'm excited for the top lane matchup of Armut and Robo. Pain Gaming will look to make good on their berth into whatever I think is Group C. Is Mad Lions, or is it Group B? It's the one with 4 because VCS dropped out, which is a bummer.
VCS is Group A.
VCS was Group A, so it's either B or C. You can correct us and comment in the YouTube comments about how stupid we are for not knowing.
Either way,
I know that RNG's in Group A because that's literally the freest group of all time.
Oh no!
So
and UOL, right, as a Pool 3 team, they drew the long straw, which is why is that not anyway?
The longest possible straw.
It's swirly and you can bendy and all that. Anyway, that's gonna do it for us. Before I say something else inane. You can find us, the Critical Strike Podcast, on YouTube. No longer SoundCloud. I don't know why that's the first one that came to my head. Don't go there if you're looking for us. Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Google Play.
is that it?
I don't know. That's your question.
I'm gonna say that it is. Yeah, you hit it.
You got it. You nailed it.
It's
Good
4,
job.
right? Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
For Meg K, for Tyler Escara, this has been episode 18 of the Critical Strike Podcast. We'll be back next week. Thanks for being here. Hey, y'all, for more of the Critical Strike Podcast, make sure to check us out on YouTube and like and subscribe for more esports content.